Dynasty Trust and DAPTs, D-A-P-T, what are those? What are we talking about? I have no idea.
Yes, Dynasty Trust and DAPTs. DAPT stands for Domestic Asset Protection Trust. These are vehicles designed to last far beyond your lifetime. These are the trusts that often we hear about when we think about the Rockefellers or the Vanderbilts or some of these older American families. And when it comes to these sorts of trusts, really the mantra becomes, keep the family together by keeping the money together. And what this creates is a family bank, a family system that will now feed the family for generations. And when we're creating a DAPT, usually that's when we don't have heirs, or a dynasty trust, that is usually when we have heirs. We're creating them because we have a certain amount of money. Maybe it's in excess of the $15 million or $30 million for a couple with the estate tax exemption. So below that, you're free. Above that, high tax. Start putting that money into these more indestructible and impregnable trusts. And when I say indestructible, I mean it. They can't be broken. And impregnable, people can't get after it. These assets now are outside of your estate. So creditors can't get access. Government agencies can't get access. And your great-grandson who's got a drug problem can't get access. And so it's a way to keep the family together by keeping all the assets and with a nice strict policy in how those assets can be used. Generally speaking, they're locked up in a way, invested in a very conservative approach, and let's say invested in a 7% return and allowing for the income off of it to be pulled out up to 5%. So if you're pulling out 5% and it's growing 7%, all of a sudden the assets here are growing forever. And if you don't need that 5%, it goes right back in and the principal grows. And if we think about compound interest and we're looking at 5 years, 10 years, 25 years, 50, 100, we see tremendous compound on the assets in the trust. So it's something to consider, A, if you want to set up your family for generations. B, if you have a certain amount of wealth that if you don't do it, you're just going to lose a lot of it. And C, you recognize that some of the things our forefathers have done are pretty smart, and we can structure things in a way to emulate it and create this enduring legacy that will last forever.
And just for clarity, the difference between a dynasty trust and just an irrevocable trust is that the irrevocable trust it's still going to just be distributing ultimately your assets versus the dynasty just keeping them here working. Is that correct?
Well, yes and no. A dynasty trust and a DAPT, they are irrevocable. So these are irrevocable.
Okay, so this is a type of an irrevocable trust. Okay, but how is it different than an irrevocable trust?
Well, when we say irrevocable, there's usually specific types. There's slats, grats, crats, islets, dynasty trusts, and many more. And in fact, there can be as many as our creative minds say. We can create trust agreements with ease. In fact, life insurance is a trust agreement. And it just happens that some of the ones I mentioned, the SLAT, which is Spousal Lifetime Access Trust, the GRAT, which is a Grantor Retained Annuity Trust, the ILET, Irrevocable Life Insurance Trust, the CRAT, the Charitable Remainder Trust, and the Dynasty Trust. These are just some of the best ones that have been around for decades and centuries that the IRS says is all good. You don't have to defend yourself in front of the IRS, and it's just more a conservative approach is what we prefer to create, is something that's tried and true for decades and centuries. And each one has a particular purpose. And generally speaking, when we're thinking of the Dynasty Trust, though, that purpose is to fund your family and to create a legacy and to be that bank that is the money that your children can tap into, your grandchildren. So they don't have to go to the bank to get a mortgage. They go to the family trust and they're paying the mortgage to the trust, which means all the interest isn't going to the bank, it's going to the next generation.
And are there tax advantages with this kind of a trust?
Yeah, so these trusts really have a couple of tremendous benefits. The liability protection, because it's out of your estate, tax benefits, the estate planning component where you can direct how you want things beyond the grave. And usually the clients are calling us because of the tax benefits, because, oh my gosh, if we do this, we're going to save massive amounts of money. If we don't do this, we're going to lose massive amounts of money. And then they find out, oh, and there's all these other benefits. Creditors can't come after you. Yeah, the government agents are like, oh yeah, that's great too. But really, I'd like to save $500,000, please. So can we set this up? Yes, we absolutely can. And so it depends on the specific situation. There are certain trusts that can protect against rapidly appreciating assets. There are certain trusts that can go to charity, but before it goes to charity, it pays you an income stream, an annuity, until you're gone. Then the rest goes to charity. Could be that we're dealing with the death tax and the estate tax. We just got to get it out of the estate. Could be that there's certain capital gains. And so it depends on the situation, and usually there are irrevocable trusts that can help. And just keeping in mind that when we create the irrevocable trust, it is creating an enduring entity that does have maintenance. Now, it's not much, but it is administration that is ongoing. So usually one wants to do this when there's a real need, there's a lot of money, or there's a special needs, or we have Medicare benefits. And so it's worth all right, cool. Now we have a tax filing every year, and there's some overhead and paperwork, but the benefits far outweigh a little bit of admin. And those are conversations we'll have with our clients to determine what irrevocable trust fits their needs.